Welcome back to another episode of Bitfinex Talks. I'm your host, Ricardo Martinez. Today, I have a very special guest, Ricardo Cuervo. Ricardo Cuervo is a chemical engineer who has 27 years of experience in the petroleum industry, and he's worked in more than 11 countries. Ricardo, thank you for coming on the show. How are you today?
Hello, good morning. Excellent. Thanks for the invitation.
I want to start off with you explaining your history in the petroleum industry and how you got started, and basically just a quick rundown of your career.
Okay, I started in Brazil working offshore. Right after I graduated, I was hired by the biggest oilfield service company in the world, which is Schlumberger. I started working offshore in Brazil, right, as I said, right after I delivered my graduation project. Immediately I went to work, then went to training in France, and I started on the production side, which is called well test. The well test is when you bring up the first oil in a well, and basically allows you to figure out how much that well will produce, and also the size of the reservoir where the oil is. So usually you do well testing the exploratory wells. So it's been a very exciting career. I have been to many places. I have the chance to work in the Middle East as well, North Africa, Africa. So I've been in the desert, offshore, onshore, jungle, helicopters. I mean, it's been a very exciting career, to be honest. After 17 years in Schlumberger, I decided I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I started an oilfield service company, a small one, which is called Latina.Energy, my own venture, which I'm still operating today. But also being an entrepreneur has helped me open the mind to see new things, particularly after 2017 when there was this oil price crash. Started to open the mind to new businesses. The oil and gas foundation is the same for everyone. Entrepreneurship does require certain skills that you develop over time, and oil field service and oil in general, I mean, oil and gas concessions are a difficult business, complex, where you need to understand certain basics and you need to be organized. And that I have inherited or I have developed over time. And I'm trying to bring it to new ideas. Recently, a friend of mine, which was also my employee for 7 years, he did a great job as a field engineer, went into crypto, and he started to push me to figure out, at least to learn and to be involved. And I find that the technology that is currently being developed for cryptocurrencies or related to cryptocurrencies is very, very interesting. All these concept of decentralized finance, blockchain, NFTs, which I'm sure we will discuss, but that has increased my curiosity, and I have started to learn, and that's how I came across you. The other technology that I see a very good future is AI, is artificial intelligence, and all the things are related to artificial intelligence, because oil business is a very data intensive business. So I'm starting to learn about that. I mean, I've already been familiarized with machine learning, but I mean, those technologies are certainly coming through, and being open-minded and look for new technologies is one of my strong areas, and I like that.
What use cases do you see for cryptocurrency, tokenization, blockchain, and AI within the petroleum industry?
Well, that's a very broad question, right? There's many things that are going on, but I would probably start by the obvious one. Initially, there was the oil and gas, and in my personal opinion, of course, I'm very partial, but in my personal opinion, still a very, 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 very profitable business. Then it came across all this green energy, and then solar, eolic, which are the most probably famous renewable energies. But then behind that is coming geothermal. Geothermal is when you produce energy from the steam that is coming out of the earth. Usually near volcanoes and stuff, you have geothermal energy and you use that to generate electricity, which is very green. Then it come the climate change and the CO2, the carbon, right? So by the push of the green energies, renewables, and the climate change is put a lot of pressure into the oil and gas business because you produce the gasoline that is burnt on the that's used to as a combustible for the cars, as a fuel. Even I mean, that is probably 20-30% out of the whole generation. But then you have airplane, ships, you have energy thermal plants that use either coal or fuel oil. I mean, there's many applications. All of that produces CO2. The CO2 now, after 2017, is being looked to be captured in order to reduce the emissions to the atmosphere. And I did that introduction to talk about flaring. So it's very common in any well and in many ways in the industry. Storing gas is not simple because you need to change their status usually from gas to liquid to be able to store it. So the most common thing for the last, I don't know, 100 years, 120 years, is been one thing that's called flaring. Flaring is basically burn the gas that goes to the atmosphere. So if the flaring is not done properly, there's a lot of CO2 that is being released to the atmosphere, right? So in areas where you have a lot of production, you're going to have a lot of gas because gas is a byproduct of the oil. I mean, every oil well produces oil, gas, and water. So the gas if the volume is not enough to justify storage, is being burned to the atmosphere. So, but that gas can be used also as a fuel to generate electricity, to generate energy, right? So that's where the concept of using the gas flaring to generate electricity and then connect some mining computers, Bitcoin mining computers to that generation, because Bitcoin mining computer or miners are energy intensive. They require a lot of energy. And the best is that you use a fuel that is being basically lost to the atmosphere or burnt to use it, to basically reuse it as a fuel for a generator that will power up the miners. So that's the most, nowadays is the most common application or relationship between oil and gas and cryptocurrency. And it's being implemented in many places. Actually, yesterday I had a meeting about it, and there's several people looking at that application in Colombia. You need to do your numbers to be able to figure out if it's actually economical or not. For the oil and gas industry, that is very helpful because you are helping them achieve what is called net zero. So net zero is whatever you emit, you will collect or you will capture. So there's no emissions to the atmosphere. That's called net zero. That doesn't mean that you're going to be green, but it does certainly reduce the amount of emissions that would go to the atmosphere. So if you use that gas to power up your generator, then you are helping to achieve this net zero and reduce. Even though the generator still will have some emissions, but they are a lot less and they would be a lot cleaner because gas is what is called the fuel for the energy transition, because it's a lot cleaner than actually oil to be burned. And it's not really cleaner, it produces less emission. There's two other technologies that certainly will have a huge application. I mean, three, but two are the main ones. One is the blockchain. So blockchain is being looked at for several things. One of the main activities for the oil and gas and for oil is trading, right? So how do you trading? You're gonna sell a barrel of oil from one hand to the other. That usually happens in the future. So you negotiate contracts that are gonna be actually take place a month ahead. You negotiate them now, either digitally or used to be on paper. So all of that is being looked at to move into blockchain. So you have unique identification for these contracts and for this barrel of oil that's being sold, and basically bring transparency to the trading into the oil industry. There's two other applications for blockchain that are very, in my personal opinion, very excited. Is that if you have a contract that is inside the blockchain, you have, or that is being followed up by blockchain, then you have a production of a chemical or oil or whatever, and you have a sensor that is actually metering what is going on. So you have the terms and conditions, how you want to sell, you have the contract, so you can actually do the invoicing much faster, because you can basically move a process that today is being done in an office based on reports that are produced by the sensor. You can move that into the blockchain. Even you can decentralize. Currently, most of this information is centralized for the companies, which makes them more susceptible for cyber attacks and mistakes and all that. You can move that towards the field where the chemical or the oil or the gas is being produced and then meter to be sold. You can actually bring transparency to that transaction too, because you can show your client that the whole process is being followed up properly. And for the seller, there would be a big benefit, because you start to collect your money faster and you start to do your invoicing faster, and then you reduce that time where the cash flow is moving between companies. So that's another application that is being looked at. And then on the procurement and supply that the industry does, which is huge. I mean, there are millions of dollars of equipment, services are being procured. You can start to follow that up with blockchain too, and that brings faster transactions, and you can do your procurement process, first of all, to be more transparent, and second, to be faster too. So that's another application that's been looked at. On the following one, I see it a little bit more in the future, but I believe there are some tests that are being done, which is with NFTs, the non-fungible tokens. The NFTs use blockchain to identify or to give originality, to give uniqueness to a non-fungible item. So I see that engineering simulations, equipment drawings and designs, um, even the patents can can become an NFTs. If you go today to an NFT market like OpenSea, you already find some simulations being sold up as NFTs. For the creator, it's a very good tool, because you can trace where your NFT is being used. Once you have sold it, you can basically track it down and see what's going on with your creation or with your invention or with your simulation. I mean, there's many things that today are being moved from paper and from the physical world into the digital world. And today or most of us, and I may be mistaken, are seeing the NFTs as drawings or paintings or art or avatars for games. But in reality, all of that can be translated into the engineering world. And oil and gas uses all kinds of engineering, all kinds of simulation. Even nowadays, the drilling rigs are being looked at, automation, following up, trending. I was invited by the Petroleum Engineering Society to be part of a committee that will evaluate creations from students on how to do a digital field. Digital field is an oil field that will be tracked on oil process with meters, sensors, and then moving to the office or whoever the decision makers are. And I see all these NFTs and blockchain being applied into it in order to have a better tracking of where the oil barrel is coming down, right? So once you're produced, you can track it, and then you plug in artificial intelligence, machine learning, and you start to see that these sensors learn, the algorithm learn how they're metering and what the conditions are for that well or for that field and how they're changing over time, and they're adjusting. And you start to bring a lot of technology into a process that before was basically written in an Excel spreadsheet. And even today, many oil companies are done that way. What happened in the industries, you have gone from, I don't know, 4 measurements an hour to 20,000, 30,000. So the amount of data that the industry is generating is huge. And to be able to really take advantage of all that amount of data, you need technologies. And AI, machine learning, even blockchain are technologies that will help certainly the oil and gas business to track, bring transparency to the measurements, and also improve processes to be faster. So I don't know if that give you a general idea or
No, that was an excellent explanation.
it helps.
Are companies in the industry already experimenting with these crypto-based solutions and these AI machine learning-based solutions, or is this still a few years out, do you think, before they actually start adopting it in mass?
Well, we need to separate a little bit. Machine learning, AI, IoT, Internet of Things are being applied certainly, and many manufacturers of meters and technology and processes are already bringing that technology into the industry today. And it's the perfect application, right? Because the amount of data is huge. More or less, you can collect the money, right? And that basically is a perfect application for most of these technologies in order to improve how fast you handle the data and how fast you well, nowadays I always make this joke is millennials wants to have dashboards. So nowadays you're moving into screens where you're gonna have all these watches and meters and levels in order for you to monitor trends. So which is basically what you're looking after nowadays. And if you have a trend, your machine learning sensor or meter, or even the process that you set up for that field will basically be improving itself. So that's where AI and machine learning are going to become certainly step changer into the industry. Blockchain and NFTs, yes, there are, for example, Exxon and Chevron did a consortium to evaluate blockchain and how they can bring all of that into the industry. The oil and gas industry is always relied heavily on the service companies that provide services to the oil and gas industry. There's probably 60, 70, 100, 100 different services that you can provide throughout the life of the well and production and all that. Most of that based on engineering, and also the service companies are the main providers of personnel. And they are working already in many applications that will help the oil and gas companies to improve their processes. I mean, the big ones, the top 10, top 20 in the world already have their innovation labs working on blockchain applications, NFTs, and blah, blah. But there is a big amount of oil and gas companies, which are middle size or small size, that certainly are going to be using that technology if you can become affordable to them. Plus, decentralized information makes sense because it's very, I mean, you reduce the size of your storage, the size of your computing in one place, the risk of cyber attacks. I mean, there's many information that the oil and gas industry handles, which is very delicate, not only for the company, but many times for the countries. I mean, countries like, I don't know, Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, Qatar, whatever, they rely on the oil and gas companies to have their reservoir information, which is confidential information, right? Because it usually means a lot of money, and when you're gonna do transactions and all that, that needs to be protected. So that's where blockchain can bring again a step change into the industry, and certainly help move forward into new technologies.
Okay, wow. This has been extremely informative. I want to take it back to what you were talking about, Bitcoin mining being applied as a way to harness like waste energy in these petroleum fields and stuff like that. I know it's pretty popular with some of the oil companies in the United States. They're starting to adopt it a lot. But outside of the United States, have you seen like, say, companies in Latin America or the Middle East or Europe using Bitcoin mining as a way to monetize this energy that's just being lost?
It is spreading out, okay? The hurdle or the barrier to actually grow more, it usually has to do with the contracts that the oil companies have with the government. I mean, many times in one concession, you have many owners. I mean, you have several owners or several companies which are in partnership to produce. So then you need to spread out how you're gonna spread out that cost slash earnings. So sometimes it's not so straightforward, because one may think, okay, I'm wasting the gas. So if somebody comes to me and says, look, I'm going to take your gas and you're not going to waste it anymore, and I will not charge you. You will not charge me anything because you're wasting it. It makes sense, but usually it's a lot more complicated than that, to actually allow to take a wasted gas or wasted source of energy to actually produce energy. So that's where the business models need to make sense, and you need to work with your clients. Yes, it's trying to be. I am aware of talks in Colombia. I'm aware of maybe one or two companies that have offered it, but I'm not aware of a place where they have set it up and they are already doing that. But there has been several talks and discussions about this. In Ecuador, nothing. In Peru, nothing. Bolivia, not aware. Bolivia is a gas producer mainly. Argentina have some. Venezuela, there have been talks, but due to the whole political situation, how difficult it is sometimes to penetrate all the bureaucracy, that have not happened. Not aware in Mexico that there is a project already set up, but that is the type of things. In reality, the concept is fairly simple. There are companies in the US or in Canada that already have a packetized system, a kit, that you can buy a kit and take it to the well site and collect. So it's more related to the type of gas that you're producing and the understanding and ability to negotiate with the oil company or with the gas company, with the gas producer company, to be able to allow them to basically mine there. And think about it, it's usually going to be in remote places. So setting up miners, computers in the desert, it doesn't really make sense, because you're going to have very strong ACs working to cool down the miners, right? So those are the type of things that are really being discussed. But that doesn't mean that it will not spread out. I believe it will spread out the moment you start to figure out business models that make sense for both parties. Certainly will fly.
Okay. And are the oil companies themselves interested, like instead of having a company come in and bring the miners and, like profit share with them or whatever, are the oil companies themselves interested in buying their own miners and keeping it like in-house, the monetization of waste energy?
Very good question. I am not aware of anyone who have done that. the oil and gas industry has become accustomed or used to use service companies for, I mean, to outsource many things, most of the services, right? So sometimes you see oil company or gas companies that have, I don't know, 20 people, and the other 300 are being hired outside. So I am not aware of an oil or gas company that have miners of their own. But maybe, I mean, sometimes it is a question of economical modeling, Ricardo. And also it's affected by the Bitcoin price, right? I mean, if the Bitcoin price falls too much, then the miners stop making sense. And, doing an investment of, I don't know, $100,000, 200, 300, $500,000 doesn't really make sense if you're not going to recover it fast enough. So it is really more of a economical exercise rather than making sense as a business.
It's been a very, very informative interview. I've had a wonderful time discussing the nuances of the petroleum industry and the overlap between crypto and AI with you. We're running out of time, so I wanted to ask you if you would share your social media for our listeners. So if anybody wants to follow you on, I don't know, Twitter or Instagram or whatever, they have your link.
Yeah, certainly. So I'm very active in LinkedIn, so you can look me up for Ricardo Cuervo. I can share with you the links, so you can put it at the end of the interview. Twitter would be rcuervo1. It'd be my personal, and I have Latina Limited as my companies. In Instagram, RJCM1969 is my personal. So yeah, certainly. And even if you get questions or comments, I'll be more than glad to answer, or maybe do another interview, whatever you think is best.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, you're more than welcome to come back on the show anytime. What about your company's website? Can you give that out just in case anybody's interested in looking up your company and working with?
Yeah, for sure. Is www.Latina.Energy.
Okay.
It's a very simple website URL.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a pleasure to discuss this topic with you.
Thank you, Ricardo. I'm glad, and thank you for the invitation. I hope we can repeat it in the future.